Deficit spending. Yeah, they would move this council chambers to Cambridge if they thought it was the right one. That would be my take on it. Yeah. They really don't want to be part of a home up, but they still will not be confused with money in
Great southeast.
Yeah, that's it. Yes, correct.
But
Yeah.
Kerry Vincent might get no votes.
Yeah. I think there's a famous memory between Hetero Council and Kerry.
Yeah. Interesting. I think we Jeremy's backslide that. Yeah. Running up there and back. Thank you, everybody. Welcome along tonight, and good to see a few people extra in the gallery. Welcome along. And I should also say that apologies for our general manager not being available for tonight's meeting, but we've got somebody more than capable of stepping right in there, and he's able, left-hand person, the acting general manager, Jess Hitchens. So that we have a full contingent here tonight. Just ask councillors having viewed tonight's agenda, does anybody want to declare a kingly interest? All right, thank you. So noted. Confirmation of the minutes. 21st of March 2023. I have a mover. Thank you. Councillor Brown, thank you. Councillor Gatehouse, second. And is there any discussion on those minutes as per circulation? I should put that for acceptance. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Five 5.0 is the mayor's report. Move for this to be voted, please. Councillor Reid and Councillor Campbell, thank you. And invite any questions from the councillors regarding my report. Gatehouse.
I noted that in your report and I think in the General Manager's report that you had meetings with the employment, various employment strategy individuals, and I wondered if there was any indication of any employment developments in the region in terms of looking forward to the future? Is there, are they anticipating certain sectors are going to boom or bust, or where is the employment development going to be? Is there any sort of, has anyone got a looking glass into the future?
I must say the federal government, and it was very pleasing to sit and talk to them for over 2 hours yesterday to the workforce committee. It was encouraging to see that they were actually taking time to, instead of just keep going on the path that we've been happening, to actually analyse where we were as a individual states and as a country with workforce development and the skills and everything needed. Interesting to find out that previously 50% of doctors that used to graduate, that figure now is only 15% of doctors that do the doctorate actually qualify, and only 2% come out to regional areas. So they're pulling numbers apart enormously at the moment, taking the opportunity of the first 12 months in power to rethink a lot of things with the workforce. We didn't get down to talking about individual areas or groups, but they recognise the southeast, as with a lot of satellite regional areas around the metro, have still got an enormous amount of growth to go over the next 10 to 20 years. And although interest rates may affect and flatten things up a bit, a lot of the projects that will be happening over the next 2 or 3 years while those interest rates are around are already in place and either planned or going to be happening. It may be a little bit slower. They are still expecting over the next 5 years an enormous skill shortage in nearly every industry you like to think of. So although we didn't get down to actual impacts of different industries, we know that we've got still a lot of growth potential in this area in all industries, so we can take it as a positive.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. You had a meeting with the PCYC and the next step. How's that next step looking, and where are we at with it all?
The next step, we're just poised to put the foot on the next step. We are actually waiting to find out whether we can go to the next level of applying for the next level of funding for 2 to 3 years worth of funding to allow it to happen here in the southeast as a whole. We thought we might have had that information by today's meeting, but we haven't received that yet. The next step, as far as we're concerned at the moment, and we discussed this pretty heavily with PCYC, is similar to what they had to do for the Derwent Valley, and very similar to what they've had to do over the last 12 months with the Glenorchy region. The area of Hobart is to go out and do a full assessment of youth issues in that area. And we're just putting together some numbers on that at the moment. So once we find out about our funding is the next step on how far we go with it.
Thank you.
Could you expand on your discussions with reps from the Woodland Youth Camp and Carlton Dixon's developer, I believe?
Yes, Blue Lagoon, being a Christian camp, they are very keen to keep the operating model going, but the place is starting to get a bit tired and needs not so much not an expansion but a revamp of facilities there. So they wanted to have a chat with us regarding any problems that might be with the residents around them, although they don't have
like
experience.
We had before.
Sorry, yes.
Like we had before.
Yes. They've gradually expanded their operations there, and the popularity is stronger than ever. And they're actually using it for a lot of other outside groups outside the Christian movement at the moment. Salvation Army, we also talked to them about using their facilities as part of the youth activities of PCYC, which they were very open to as well. The General Manager was checking on a few different things that we needed to entertain to make sure they were looking for confidence of investing more money in it without having to be forced out over the coming years because of neighbours and they're just trying to tick their boxes more than anything else. Carlton Dixon was interesting as it always is with Carlton, and a very sensible meeting about some of the land that he owns, which is on the corner of Carlton River Road. and the possibilities. They were looking at different interpretations of the planning scheme and what they could do with that to get that up and moving. We discussed a couple other parcels of land that he was involved with and what might be able to happen with them and the upcoming review of the Southern Tasmanian land use strategy. Most of the questions and information that he had, I had to refer back to the General Manager because it was more operational and planning than I could answer. Certainly he has a big investment in this community and wants to continue with that, but he's, because of his knowledge in this area, he knows it's a slow drip, not a quick happen.
And that parcel of land is probably more conducive to larger blocks than small residential blocks, I would assume.
Yes, they were talking about a hectare to start with, and I think the planning commission was forcing the 3, which is sort of too big for an individual to handle, so somewhere around that hectare to 1.5 might be a better thing, but that will be taken up in that strategy review of the whole area.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you. I shall put my report for passing. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. No supplementary items before us at the moment. 7.0 is a list of the council workshops for the month. Work group reports. Can I have a move, please, for this be tabled? Councillor Campbell, Councillor Brown, thank you. And invite discussions to the staff of Arnold, again, the reporting for everybody's. I might just start off with vandalism, gets mentioned a couple of times again, Council. Is the amount of work we're doing on vandalism in the community distracting from our normal work crew's ability to get jobs done? Seems to be high in some areas.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say, Mayor, that if we're dealing with vandalism issues, we're not doing what we've scheduled for maintenance, particularly for facilities and probably land improvements to a lesser degree. So what they're able to do in a day is diminished by how much time is spent. And there's, I mean, Jess is going to have to go to one tomorrow, but there's also the restitution side of things. So if we do happen to catch somebody, then the youth groups will move in, and council are expected to attend those meetings to discuss with the youth what issues and those sorts of things as well. So there's a flow-on effect not only on an operational level, but at a back-end level in terms of CCTV footage and all of the things that goes into a standard investigation. So, I mean, you add it up all that time, it's not inconsiderable.
It's hard to measure a lot of that cost.
Yes, because it's overhead costs, but it's fair to say that while we're doing that, we're not doing something else that might be slightly more productive in nature.
And I noticed that the Lewisham Boat Ramp toilet, it's been a long awaited project, the toilet's actually sitting there. That mentioned another contract in here. Is that commissioning it or the
Wastewater.
wastewater?
So it's the wastewater connection that we've got to do, because obviously there's no wastewater in that area, so we've got to commission a wastewater system to sit alongside it.
2 separate contracts,
Two-
one for the building.
Well,
one-
yeah, there's a plumber subcontractor to the builder. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a question here, page 22, about the jobs completed and about submitting the local grant application for Sorell Trucks and Trail Strategy. Are we still there or not? Am I too ahead? Page 22. It just says strategy and risk. Completed trucks and trail strategy.
Yes, that was completed and we were successful with that grant application.
Okay. So that means that the grant is to develop the actual strategy.
Yes.
What's the grant about? Would you?
Sorry.
What's the grant about? What will we be covering?
So that's to develop the tracks and trails strategy.
So is that an internal thing, just to develop the document? Is that what it is?
We'd like to use a consultant to develop
Ah,
the strategy.
I see. And then another question about the treatment plans for high residual risk items. What's that about?
So on our risk register, the higher level risks that we're required to have a risk treatment plan, So Oliver, our strategy and risk officer, is working with the work group managers to develop the risk treatment plans, which then are submitted to the audit panel.
So it's an internal
Yes,
for council operation,
yes.
is that correct? Thank you.
Councillor Trent.
Is there nobody else? Look, I'm not sure whether this is the right time to raise this, but I noticed the general manager met with the mobility group. I also met with one of the members, and one of the priorities, I believe, was safety for the children travelling or walking to the Doctors Ferry School. And they have asked, and Russell will put this on notice, they've asked for the extension of the concrete footpath. We've gone so far.
Yeah, past the Carlton Beach Cut River Junction.
And then to take it further to the school, which I thought was quite feasible request.
Yeah, because one of the reasons that we previously got some VRU was to go down First Avenue was our safe track to that school at the moment. It doesn't mean everybody should follow it, but there is a safe access to the school, sort of across that crossing, and then right down to the end, and then a track through the school.
It was going to be one of my requests for the
Yeah,
budget.
sure,
coming
no
budget talk, so I'm just flagging it now, so
Yep.
the others are aware of it too.
Yeah, and for those that weren't aware, when we started the project, we started from the school, and I think 12 years ago now, I'll suggest, and towards the shop, and then fanned out from there, and that's been a continuation every year since along there forward. So.
And
Councillor Reid.
I'll just add to that, if I may, that that's been an ongoing conversation with the school community from, 12 years ago and earlier. So the crossings at that part at near Carlton River Road has been an ongoing issue.
And the speed limit.
And speed limit, yes.
Yeah.
Not sure if this is the right spot, but in 10.3 at the bottom, page 34, it's the Sorell Lions Club lease renewal. Is that done on an annual basis?
Yes, that's a 12-month.
12 month, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor.
On page 47, infrastructure and assets, number 10.6, it says capital works about to commence construction. And the third one is Hannah Street in Dodgers Ferry, and says stormwater upgrade, including roadside infrastructure to reduce the risk of flooding. So is this from the beach towards the park? Page 47. Yeah, a little bit higher up.
Oh, sorry.
You want capital works about to
I like that
commence.
one.
Capital works about to commence. A little bit lower. Yep, right there.
Oh, there.
Hannah Street, yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
So that is for roadside drainage around Cannon Street.
Is this, how does that work? Because this is a seal road.
So Cannon Street's a gravel road.
Oh, gravel one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's to take care of the roadside drainage along Cannon Street.
On the side of the lagoon, on the
No,
side of
on the
the
top,
house.
on the top side.
Because right now, the road goes a little bit higher up and creates a little bit of a, so it
Yes.
forms like a swell. Right?
Yes, yep.
So is that going to remain that way or?
That the water is not going, there's going to be, the swale will remain, but the water won't sit there through there. So basically, there'll be a stormwater bit of channel and pipe, so that water is not sitting there permanently.
And it's going to drain towards the lagoon?
Yes, it is.
So it's going to let it flow? Is that what's going to, the hill side?
Well, I can show you the design drawings because they've gone out to the public, and that's probably a better way of showing you it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, one more, thank you. Mayor, on page 40, there's mention of the current developments in the area. I noted the community questions and comments about the playground and what some people are now referring to also as a dog park expected on Paulina Road. Do we have an update on where the works are at, and will they, when completed, become council assets or not? That's also part of the community conversation around it.
Yeah, so I through Mayor, yep, so all of those assets will become council assets from the developer. The developer has to complete various bits of that as part of his staging plan. So I think the playground was associated with stage 5, and the dog park's probably at a later stage. Plus, there's some footpaths through there and various other things. So there's a whole heap of criteria in the planning permit that was approved that there's various bits have to be completed at various stages through the development of that. But at the end, all of those assets will transfer as donated assets to council.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one more, Russell. I'm not sure whether you can answer this. The shortage of funding, re the jobs hub and the function centre. Have you any idea how much the shortage of funding is?
No, so through there at the moment, the quantity surveyors have got the job of costing both of those jobs up, and we're expecting it within the next couple of weeks. Yeah, it was the fastest we get it done was 4 weeks, and it was issued 2.5 weeks ago.
Right.
Yeah.
So if there is a shortage of funding, we go back to the drawing board to.
Well, there's a few options on the table, I suppose. It's, what council wants to do, what the scope is, and what we're prepared to do, or what we're not prepared to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
At my meeting yesterday today, which I mentioned was to discuss that potential. We have another federal minister coming across in a few weeks that is aware of the possible shortfall. We hope to have it by then on exactly how much it is for the jobs hub. And yesterday, when we met with the Federal Workforce Task Force Committee, it was also discussed how that may be overcome. Nobody's got any immediate answers, other than there's a lot of conversations taking place at the moment.
But yeah, through me, I'm not interested in starting a design until that's sorted out from that perspective.
Fair enough.
I've got a design to a price, if you know what I mean.
Yep. Understand. Thank you.
There has been sensible conversation on some of those items for stage development. Some can be done that way, some can't. Obviously, they're copying this from every capital project that's out there at the moment because of cost overruns and the time it's taken the government to release those funds from the election, creating those problems big time. But at the moment, it's only discussions and nothing's been triggered yet.
So, through you, Mayor, if I may. On page 48, mention of the headworks modelling. At the Local Government Association seminar that Councillor Trenes and you and I attended, there was a session specifically on infrastructure funding through headworks and similar methods. Is this a process that Sorell Council's been working on anyway, or is this something that we're working with Local Government Association and others as part of that broader approach?
So through there, Michael Elfridge is aware that we're working on the project. I think all LGAT has set up is the sort of framework of how it might, there's no how in it.
Yeah.
Sorell's done a little bit more on stormwater to basically be able to work out a how and a number. And we think that'll come as part of Shane's stormwater policy, council policy, which will have to come to a council workshop and go through the right process. So we've built that headworks charging methodology into the draft stormwater policy for Sorell Council.
Terrific. Okay, thank you.
I mean, obviously the developers are not going to be particularly ecstatic about there being an additional charge, but this is about getting the balance right between what the community pays for and what the development pays for in terms of future works and how much the utilisation of the infrastructure.
Yeah, and one of the points made at the session very clearly is Tasmania no longer needs to be developments thought of as needing subsidising by the public quite to the extent that we used to. And that fairer approach and having consistency and a well understood model is really important. So it's great to hear that all of that work's going into it.
The community engagement's going to be quite important because all Tasmania's done is remove head works in the past.
Yeah.
So the idea
Yes.
of reintroducing things will be a battle of that'll be fought out, no doubt.
There are a number of major developers that want to go back to the headworks charges, because if you look at it at the moment, the first one to break into an area where's all the costs.
Yes.
And then everybody comes in around that because they save between $2,000 and $10,000 a block against the person who first moved into that area, which gives them a financial disadvantage. And they usually do it pretty quick to sell their blocks cheaper and quicker. So there is an enormous amount of major developers that wish to see a more sensible equity, and it's opened up conversations about the whole development of new areas that we weren't able to have a few years ago. Thank you. If there's nothing else, I shall put the motion for the reports to be accepted. All those in favour? Passed unanimously, thank you. 11.1, the petition for the hooning on Colonies March Beach. I'll move this, please. Councillor Trenias and Councillor Reid seconded, thank you. And open the floor up for some discussion regarding this. Obviously, we've received the report, the General Manager put it forward. We need to do a bit of other work with in regards to this, plus we have had letters from several key and long-term residents down there regarding it. Any other comments from the floor?
I'd just like to make the comment that I'm amazed that the Crown Services sort of have allowed this to continue for so long. Nowhere else are you allowed to drive your vehicle, most places you're not allowed to drive your vehicles on beaches. So it'll be interesting to see the discussion with Crown Service. I believe the General Manager's already had some discussion, but let's hope we can get some success in that area.
Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just to mention that we were looking, I know this is about Colonies March, but we were also looking at Primrose Sands with the same problem. I don't know if there's any update on that as well, but I just wanted to get.
There is no update at the moment. The General Manager is talking with Crown Land Services regarding those two issues, so that you just can't go in and make wholesale changes without it being discussed properly. And I remind anybody that any area we take of Crown land, we can apply for a lease, but then that's usually a long-term lease, but then we are liable for the depreciation of any maintenance of any area like that as well. So there's ongoing consequences of anything we do in that area as well that needs to be weighed up by the General Manager and his team.
Through then. Thank you. I'd just like to add a comment that petitions are a great part of our democratic process, which is good to see. And it'll be interesting, from my understanding of the situation and some of the other representations we've received, we're now getting more comprehensive understanding of the history of the land there and what's happened over time. So I look forward to that report.
Yes, there's a lot of other people class as traditional use of the area and access to those areas that sometimes come to the fore in those discussions that we need to work through. Thank you. If no other comments, we'll put that, and the General Manager is working through that to come back to us. Russell as well, so I'll put that motion for acceptance. All those in favour? All passed unanimously. Thank you. 12.00 is land use planning. The Mayor advised in accordance with the provisions of Part 2 Regulation 25 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulation 2015, the intention of the Council to act as planning authority pursuant to the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 is to be noted. In accordance with Regulation 25, the Council will act as a planning authority in respect to those matters appearing under item 12 on this agenda, inclusive of any supplementary items. 12.1 is the Sorell Planning Authority minutes. I have a move, thank you. Councillor Brown, thank you. Councillor Reynolds, thank you for seconder. And any discussion on those minutes as circulated? Thank you. I shall put the motion for those minutes to be accepted. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Thirteen point one is adoption of the revised strategic plan. Mover, thank you for this table. Councillor Brown, and seconded by Councillor Campbell, thank you. Would you like discussion regarding the revised strategic plan? A lot of work's gone into this over, especially with a whole new council in place and understanding of it and the steps involved. And I mean, tomorrow the next stage of the local government reform will be released, and as we know, this will bring around a possibility of having to look more closely at our strategic plan, depending on what's in that reform package. So, open the floor up for other discussion, please.
Through you, Mayor.
Thank you,
Just reiterating that the report with it refers to reviewing every 4 years, but that's at least every 4 years. So there's a lot of scope there, depending on what changes may be around the corner.
You might be looking at it in the next couple of weeks.
Might be.
If you think back over whatever number of years you've been around this municipality and the changes that have gone on, it has been very much a fluid document that has to be changed, looked at and revised on a regular basis. A lot of the things in there are very broad in their terms, which can take care of things like the education and the involvement of the school and the sport and arts are quite often changes in that area can roll along pretty well with what's there, but I think it is an important document. We're going to come even more so in the future, especially with the Southern Tasmania Land Use Planning and what we learned at our planning meeting a few weeks ago was that the gap held about the importance of making sure that future trends in planning are also taken up in your strategic plan. And we've got the ability to review that as needed and required. And I think over the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to see a lot more changes forced upon us, which will trigger all sorts of different parts of the community needing to be involved in the consultation process. Is there any other councillor? Councillor?
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to say again, and I think that it is important that we continue to review this because of the amount of changes that we're subject to and at so many levels. The advocacy for community consultation, for de-risking our strategic plan and how we interpret the strategic plan as well. I commit to continue to advocate for that. I think they're very important things that we need to look into the future, how we interpret the strategic plan as well, and how we deploy it through the annual plan, through the budget, and how we choose to spend the budget in prioritizing issues that environment, climate change, children and youth, some community development aspects that haven't been in the front in the past couple of years. So I really look forward to see that on how we interpret this plan and how we continue to review it.
Thank you. With that, I shall put the strategic plan for acceptance. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thanks very much. 15.1 is community grants application. No reference sector to this. Mr. Trenius and Councillor Campbell, thank you very much. Would you like to make a comment on this? It's a good little program, this event is. It's really good.
I would, thank you, Mayor. I'm no longer directly involved in Okines from the board point of view, but remain a volunteer and will be looking forward to going again to this event. It's one of the highlights of the community calendar and brings the whole community together, so it's a fantastic event for council to be able to support. And also noteworthy that this is the first time Okines has sought council funding for it, and they've been able to source other funds and bring large groups of volunteers together to make it happen. So looking forward to it in June again this year.
If the grandkids love it, so I've got to be good. Thank you. I should put a motion for acceptance of that community grant. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you very much. 16.1 is the executive summary financial report, March 2023, year to date. Move it, please. Councillor Reid and second by Councillor Brown. Thank you. Open the floor for discussion. As noted in our workshop on budgets and finances before the council meeting started, a lot of the projects that, for various reasons, rainfall, flooding, other priorities and extra expenditure, there's a lot of things that need to swing over, so explain there a lot of the details. So, as always, at this time of year, there's a fair bit of correction in the last 3 months as invoices come in and jobs are either rushed through or planned to be swung over into the following year. So, but overall, it's still extremely neat.
I was just going to say it's always very comprehensive. We've hardly got any questions to ask.
It's all laid out pretty well, isn't it? Yeah. Even individual projects now, which is fantastic. And, you know, if you go back years ago, before the same accounting standards, councils used to be able to float between projects, so you never really knew whether the projects come in on budget or it was just swung across from something else. But now it is down to the cent, basically. It's very comprehensive.
And I can remember when individual councillors were in charge of the finances. So it's going back a while.
I won't ask you how
Thank
long
goodness
that-
that doesn't.
Councillor Reid.
One small detail, which is more an operational thing than a budget thing really, is the page 119, mention of the curbside garbage disposal, costs being higher. I'm just wondering, do we know why, and is it perhaps something to do with the soft plastics situation?
We believe it's just with the extra volume at the moment in some areas like that. We've had several contacts from residents regarding comments being made and what they've read regarding some of the waste changes as well, of which we've been responding as quickly as we can to those, and we will also organise an article to try and explain the changes to the waste industry. But people have certainly been taking advantage of the curbside, so it's pure numbers, volume driven.
Yeah, and then the high waste is down, so you get a bit of yin going on.
nothing else then, I shall put the financial report for acceptance. All those in favour? Passed unanimously, thank you. 20.1 is stadium fees for South East Regional Schools. Move please. Thought it actually Councillor Reynolds on this one, yes. And the seconder, thank you, Councillor Gatehouse. Really good initiative, and it's been a while in the making, good changes with principals and having priorities for the school build. We finally got there with the availability of greater use of community assets, so well done to Jess and the team to get them to this point. Councillor Reynolds.
Could I just seek a little bit of clarity around, is this just for daytime or during school hours, this fee that schools can do? So it would be after school activities?
It would be activities organised by the department.
By the department, but it's there, like, could that be at, say, 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock at night if they're running an event, or?
Yeah, potentially.
I just noted in here, it said through daytime activities. That was not, so.
That was the main intention around the daytime activities, that we're looking to increase the utilisation, and obviously that's when the schools are more likely to be using them, but we could certainly consider it for a special event.
And I mentioned earlier before the meeting about potential of an annual sort of fee, which the schools can approach you about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent, thank you.
Councillor Reid.
Through you, Mayor, thank you. Just curious as to how the amount of $35 was settled upon.
The $35 was reflective of the anchor tenant package, right? So that was where that paid.
Nothing else, I'll put the motion for acceptance of the fees for the schools. All those in favour? Passed unanimously, thank you very much. And we now move on to questions from the public. Just as we have a few new members there, just residents in tonight, just work around the room. When you stand, if you just say your name clearly, please, so we've got on record, and the area that you're live or representing, commenting on, and then you're more than happy to take questions. If we can't answer, we'll take it on notice and get back to you. We may need to get your name and address before you leave after questions, but we can certainly find out what we need to and get back to you if that's what's required. So, who would like to start us off tonight? We're going to left or deep. Someone across? Yeah. Hello, sir.
Good day, mate. I would like to know if any of you councillors walk down town and check on the rubbish, the flower boxes up the main street. They've got beautiful arrangement of dead weeds in them, and the rubbish that's laying in it, and dog feces. Now, I had a woman the other day come to me and say about the dog feces. She's got a little girl in a pram and a little girl on a bike, and she's having a battle walking around the street because of dog feces. And what would you do something about the flower boxes?
Yes, sorry, your name?
Yes, Perkins.
Thanks, Jeff. I might get Russell to just say how we deal with that, but yes, I think most of us do move around the central area, and some of those issues have been around for a while, but talk to Russell.
There was another thing I'd like to say. Have you been up Devonish Drive, the present moment, and had a look at the footpath in Devonish Drive?
The first house, you mean then?
Yes, the first house. The footpath's down that far.
Yes, it's been discussed with the general manager last week, where Tony's truck has, the weight of the trucks disrupted the pavers, and it has been discussed, and I'm not sure what the next step is, but the general manager is aware of it.
Yeah, so if you leave me details, I'll list give you a timing, and that's going to be resolved, but it might be a discussion probably with the individual required. I mean, we'll still have to fix it as a question of who pays for it, probably. With the flower boxes, yep, they're not in good condition at the moment. We are, I don't know whether you've noticed, but on the other side of the street, we've started doing a bit of streetscaping. So all of that street furniture and flower boxes and stuff will be replaced as part of that project. But as you point out, the important thing is to keep it going. I think there's been a little bit of discussion with council about about some of the shop owners coming on board to do a little bit in terms of watering and those sorts of things. Because obviously we pay good watering at the moment to water some of our trees during the summertime to keep everything alive. So we'd like to get some mutual obligation stuff going where we do a bit and they do a bit to make sure that that streetscape stays as well as it should be.
And another thing, up there at the roundabout at the tennis court, right on the corner, there's 3 acorn trees. Now, how big's an acorn tree, bro? There's 3 acorn trees planted right on in the nature strip, right on that roundabout. Now, I went up there today and there's acorns laying all over the footpath.
The ones, those are maintained by us, and part of the maintenance of them is the line of sight for traffic. So probably 2 years ago, some of the branches were quite low and were interfering with the line of sight for cars getting away, so they were cut back to allow for that. So it's something that's monitored regularly, as with all trees.
But if the acorns are a risk, then we'll need to get them off the pathway as well.
Yeah, and they're going into the gutter too,
Yeah,
so when they finish up there.
Okay.
Thank you. Anytime you do have concerns like that, you see that you feel are a concern, you are quite welcome to come into the front counter. We have a system here that puts any residents' comments or complaints, requests, concerns into the system, and then the people on the front counter are very highly trained in different areas, and they can spear it into whoever's required to have a look at that, and then over the coming week, fortnight, when time allows, they get out and assess them, regardless of whether it's a tree, pothole, any issues at all. The beauty of doing it that way too is it gets recorded into our computer system, so it can't be avoided. And it comes up, and if you don't answer or respond, it goes on to somebody else to tap you on the shoulder, or every week it keeps coming up as a reminder on our
I'll put those in manually. I'll put those in manually for you tomorrow.
I walk around the town every day.
Yeah.
Over morning, I walk every day.
Yep.
I see all this sort of stuff and I think, well, why aren't they out there fixing it, you know?
a lot of things to fix all the time, and it depends how far you go, but sometimes
Yeah, but-
blind eyes don't see those things, and we're all in the same boat there, but appreciate you coming along and mentioning those things.
And it's up the main street there, round those trees up there, they had nice wrought iron stuff down it. They decided to take the wrought iron away and put pebbles there. Know where the pebbles are here?
Yeah, well, on the footpath, I've seen that outside the chemist warehouse there and along there, yeah.
Down on the footpath.
Yeah.
Well, why did they take them?
No idea.
Have to ask a question, but if you want to leave your number with Russell, we can certainly get back to you on some of those things.
But we do intend to put some more trees in there, and you'd be pleased to know we're going to put more of those wrought iron things in, not the pebbles. But we need to retrospectively probably look at the pebbles going forward.
Up the main street, all the leaves there, they've got blowers or something that they can go up there and clean that street up. It's a drive down through Sorell, it's a dirty bloody joint. And the leaves that's laying around everywhere, in the gutters.
Leaves are a very natural thing, so
Yeah, but why
if you start doing it how many times a day, that's something we'll discuss later on. But that's, some people see that also as the beauty of the area. So, thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So my name's Pip Jones, and I'm here representing Southern Beaches Land Care Coast Care. I'd also like to acknowledge that we're meeting here on Moomba country and that I pay my respects to elders past and present. Elders. I have 5 questions, which I can pass on to other folks if I may. Otherwise I'll just blast through. But first of all, we at Southern Beaches Land Care would like to congratulate Sorell Council's full-time appointment of the Natural Resource Management Facilitator for Divas. And we're heartened by Divas' commitment to work with the community to achieve positive outcomes for environmental conservation in our municipality. The community is distressed with the ongoing inappropriate management of Dodgers Ferry Recreation Reserve. This site has been seriously degraded by the current and historic grooming above and beyond the prescriptions that are within Sorell Council's Fire Management Plan in 2009. So my first question is, Will council enable the NRM facilitator to work with the local community to ensure that the grooming contract does not exceed the required 5 rate area and that works are completed to an appropriate standard?
Yes.
Cool. Any other comments?
No, well, it's fantastic. What he's doing for us is great, and we know we had that void. You know, Paul was good in some areas, but had his expertise and whatever. DBAS has taken it to a whole new level for us, which is good for us too. For everybody, don't always get it right. We have to do what we have to do. He's been a breath of fresh air for all of us. So that's that reserve area has always been an issue, but we certainly do not have an issue in that consultation and discussions.
So that brings me to my second question, which may be answered. So are councillors aware of the long involvement of community with this reserve and the historic co-management agreement between the community committee and council staff? And will the GM meet with us to discuss reinstating this approach?
Yes.
On that one, I think, Kerry, the general manager, we have a newly appointed stakeholder and engagement coordinator, so it may be more appropriate for the committee to meet with Sharon, who's starting next week, and Dibus initially, and they can bring things back to the general manager, but we're very happy for the two of them to meet with the committee.
Okay, Sharon. Starting on Monday,
Wednesday. Yeah, James, on Wednesday. Right.
So that's a new position with the changes happening going on. So our acting general manager took my next sentence straight away from me. But yes, we are fully aware in the restructure that we've just gone through with staffing into certain areas to try and strengthen some areas where we need that more attention. General manager raised it actually in the meeting we had beforehand about our staffing numbers really haven't changed. When we were a $13, $14 million council, now we're a $20 million council with still the same staff. So it's the sort of thing that every 4 or 5 years hits you a bit like a brick wall that, hang on, we have to adjust here. So Jess, over the last probably 6 months, Jess, we've done a fairly major restructure which has allowed us to put some people in place with focuses in more important areas of attention that probably weren't there a few years ago. DBAS is certainly part of that. And also what we want to do with community consultation as well going forward. So you'll see a few subtle changes there where that'll be a little bit different going forward.
So as I mentioned, there's the Sorell Council's Fire Management Plan from 2009 and also the Dodgers River Reserve Management Plan from 2015, I believe. So as part of that plan, monitoring is actually written into that plan. So why has monitoring not been undertaken as per these plans to observe the impacts on threatened vegetation communities and the resident threatened species such as the eastern black bandicoot and the Tasmanian masked owl?
The owl was Paul's favourite. No, the bats, wasn't it? When bats were his favourite, it was lovely owls. Yeah. Look, I can't fully answer that question other than that sort of operational side of things like that would be a very sensible question to put to us and to Sharon in the next couple of weeks, and we'd all probably learn from that conversation because I really can't answer an operational question like that.
So is council aware that the use of the groomer is actually increasing the fire risk due to high disturbance promoting flammable species such as bracken?
Whole technical question that I would not like to say yes or no to, and I'd suggest same thing. I think that's really a good question to be part of that, and that information of that meeting can be fed back to us so that we're all aware of it. I can remember a lot of the discussions once again that have come through Paul when that 2015 was plan was put in place. I think it might have been 20% per year was going to work on, and that would have, there's been fire managers have been grooming with the firms and everything, and there's reasons for or against, but that's why out of my level of expertise, so it'll be something we can all learn after you've had that meeting with us.
And finally, thank you as well for the 20 nest boxes that were provided by Sorell Council in community grant last year. So it was provided to improve crucial habitat in the site. So due to the grooming works, the shrub layer has been prevented from recruiting and regenerating. So our council is aware that a group of dedicated volunteers have been working on the ground to restore the natural structure and complex habitat of this woodland environment. And a statement, but also an invitation. Councillors are welcome to join us on Tuesday during our weekly hand weeding working meeting to learn more about this site.
Well, that'll be interesting because my deputy mayor went tree hugging down the Tark line last week for a article he's doing, so he could do the same sort of program there in the Douglas Ferry Reserve, I'm sure. Thank you, I appreciate the invitation. Dennis has got all the contact details. Yeah, we're just checking then that Devas will initiate those conversations over the coming weeks as soon as Sharon's got the feet under the table and understands which directions up and down. Thank you. Sharon.
Sharon Fotheringham from Dorset. Just questions that affect the whole community in relation to the new waste disposal routine that's coming in. Is that going to come in from the 1st of July? Does it start 1st of July?
1st of July 24.
Oh, I thought it was the 1st of July this year. And I was like, wow, yeah.
There's a fair bit of consultation and education to do before we go anywhere near some of that. Yeah.
All right, that's all right. That answers my second question. Thank you.
Sharon, we need to do several articles in the Sorell Times over coming months. A lot of it is unknown how it's going to affect, but when you look at the container deposit, the change with how organics are handled and separated, the levy that's now on there and how we need to educate all ratepayers in Tasmania on separation of waste and what can be done to reduce the cost of waste by putting it into further processing. We still have, between the government, councils and all residents of Tasmania, a lot of understanding to do, so you'll probably find that every 3 to 6 months there'll be another slight change in the way that waste as a whole is talked about and thought about, and we have to have a generational change. And it doesn't matter whether it's green waste or hard waste or plastics. There'll be a lot of information now. All of that is not readily available to us at this stage, but as it does start to come through with the container deposit and the levy and so forth, we'll be trying to communicate that as quickly and easily back out to the community.
Yeah, no, I thought it was going to start on the 1st of July this year, and I'm like, oh. And I was asking people out there if they heard about it, and they didn't know anything about it, so you go and tell them not to panic.
We've got quite a few processes to go through with council as well before we get anywhere near that. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
I'll start with the easy one. Down at the Gibbon Street roundabout, there's a couple of, I suppose they're anti-graffiti lights on the back of a building there that shine on the back of the food barn, which of course shine the micro-size as well, particularly bad on a wet night. Could you get someone to put a couple of scatter shields on so they actually shine on the wall? That brings me to the next bit, the graffiti. We seem to have another ration of graffiti in the town.
Yes, we do.
What's happened to the police force? I thought we had a proliferation of men in blue.
We certainly have had an increase in the men in blue, but usually it's, and by the looks of the tag, it's probably 1 or 2 different people.
Oh, I doubt that. One of them's got some artistic talent, the other one's got no talent.
That's quite good. I'll go back to the original one at England Drive. You might remember there was a full-size wall graffiti there. Russell and I discussed it. Russell wrote a lovely letter suggesting something be done to the owners of that building, and within a very short time frame they turned the wall into big advertising sign for themselves and took it quite seriously. We are trying to do the same with the owner of the where the graffiti is, but we're not getting the same sort of response there, but we will continue to try and do that. The police evenly get frustrated with tagging, and they usually go a couple of months and then they find out who, what, where, and then it stops for 6 months, and then somebody else starts up. And they do talk with frustration about the cycle of tagging in the community. Unfortunately, a lot of businesses don't rush to paint it out. As I found with my own business, it gets tagged and you paint it out within the next couple of days, they don't seem to come back. So it's something the community's got to be aware of, and everybody's got to join in to sort of cut that sort of behaviour out. So, can't speak on behalf of the police though, Mike.
No, well, they drink a fair amount of coffee, you think they'll be awake 24/7. Must be decaf.
Must be the donuts that bring them undone, I reckon.
The other one, which concerns me and a few other people expressed opinion, is the, I don't know what you call it, but it's alongside the old Hazel building and the old Hazel Hotel in Bellin Street. I'm not quite certain what it is, but it completely shades the house to the south, which used to be a council regulation, you couldn't do that. It must have devalued that house 50 to 100 grand at least. How the hell did that get through council planning?
It still ticks the statewide planning scheme, and I don't think there would have been a councillor in the room at the time that would have disagreed with some of your comments on that. Unfortunately, as you well know, we wear a different hat when it comes to planning to being a councillor.
Well, maybe the state planning ought to be looked at. Is that the start of a new place in Sorell? Everything going vertical?
One would hope not, but
Well, once you set the precedents, the precedents are set.
once again, that's why you have a statewide planning scheme, and we don't have full choice over some of the things that are in there, unfortunately.
Well, who controls that? Are they
Nobody controls the state planning scheme, unfortunately.
Exactly.
Not even the government.
Maybe they should get to live next door for 10 years. The other one is this road out here, which doesn't connect to whatever road it is over there. Is that likely to ever be connected?
Yes, it will be connected. Part of the agreement is with the building of the police station. The connection to go through is a connection that the emergency vehicles could use. It's not actually a road, it is a right of access. So it hasn't been done as a major road, so it won't be a dead set road through there. It'll be accessed for the emergency services to get to the top end of town quicker only.
But pedestrians and cyclists and whatever will be able to use, there will be a continuous footpath.
That takes a large percentage of traffic off that side of the town, which has got too much anyway. And it's a very convenient, but to slip through Independent Drive. But, to not make it a through road is a bit of an.
Well, once again, it's only access, it's not a major road, and if you're going to take traffic both ways, a major reconstruction, all that would need to be done, and that's not on the cards at this stage.
Okay, you should look on the cards.
It's been assessed to the lane as and we're putting.
There was always going to be a connecting road from Pennington Drive through to the main road. And that's now been built up with drains and houses and whatnot. There it is there, short of what, 30, 40 metres? Across council land.
No decision's been made to what we've done so far.
Yeah, but decisions can be overturned, can't they?
Well, always in the future, if the money's available and the times, but that's what we've done at the moment.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm Peter Blackwell, I live in Carlton. Wondering if council is aware that the recycling centre near the Dodgers Ferry Primary School is often being, because it's in a hidden location at night, it's often being used by people to dispose of toxic and inappropriate things such as fish waste, motor oil and such like, which poses a health and safety risk to children and the school, and wonder whether council is considering relocating that recycling centre in a place where it's more publicly visible 24 hours a day to discourage the inappropriate use. You made comments earlier about the need to educate the community, and I agree, but there will always be people who, for probably reasons of financial desperation, but also opportunism, will misuse recycling facilities, and so the design and location is important.
Thank you, Peter. Sensible comments. The answer will be yes, no, no, yes, 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 no. At this point in time, with the changes coming up and with the container deposit scheme, some of those facilities like that will depend on, in the next 12 months, where the government put contractors in place to do the container deposit. And the thought pattern is that in regional areas, it will create an opportunity to do recycling a little bit differently, because the container deposit system by itself may not be enough for a single operator to be able to do that efficiently. Different in the metro where you've got massive volume of those containers. So areas like here where we are still a centralised point for the east coast of the peninsula, we would like to think that it may well fit that some of those areas may be combined with some of the other separation of waste. And we've looked at operations at several large areas on the mainland to see how they work and how they're kept tidy. You are quite right that public education is a big part of that, and there's always a percentage of people that doesn't matter where it is. And I can assure you that they have no respect for things in the main street either, and where they dump things in other parts of the community. The other big hassle with that is where you locate something like that. I'm sure Councillor Terenius would be only too happy to have a discussion about how hard it is to even find a spot like that for.
Nobody wants it in their backyard.
Nobody wants it in their backyard. We do not have a lot of council-owned public space that would facilitate something like that. So our feeling is that we would like to work with a private contractor or private people to develop something a lot better than what we've got down there. It does work pretty well some days, but it only takes 2 or 3 people to leave a lot of stuff down there. And I'm part of the pickup crew for Old Fawcett Road, so I quite regularly go and pick some of that contaminated stuff up there as well, so I'm fully aware of the issues you're talking about. I can't say yes, we're going to fix it in the next 12 months, because it'd be silly to try and do something when we've got all these changes going on in the waste industry, but hopefully in a very short time we'll be able to address that and do it a little bit better. But I might say every single council I talk to here and on the mainland pretty well have the same issue. But some of these closed off areas that work very well, like up at Shoalhaven Council, where they have collections for separation of waste from polystyrene to mattresses to even power cords that get cut off electrical appliances. They found ways of recycling and reusing a lot of that material, and they run very clean, tidy operations, mainly because they're only operational from 7 AM to sort of 5, 6 PM. But they seem to operate now with the use of security cameras that stop illegal dumping at the gates as well. So there's a lot of things we have to weigh up there. It does come at a huge cost. Everybody wants a transfer station right in their backyard to be able to dump everything, but we can't keep continuing to be a nation that keeps dumping waste and expect somebody else to take care of it, just bury it. We have to find ways of reuse, separation, recycling, and not destroying the environment the way we are at the moment. So you'll see, Peter, a lot of things change, like I mentioned, over the next couple of years, and hopefully they'll be part of it down there as well.
Thank you.
Thanks. If there's nothing else, I really appreciate you coming along and having the chat.
I've got a tiny question.
Oh yes, fire away.
Jamison, on that note, the recycling centre, there's a little tin shed next to the recycling centre that apparently the tractor used to be parked in,
Yes,
which is now full of rubbish and an old piano. Do councillors have any objection to a group of volunteers going and cleaning out that shed and having pop-up art installations in there?
Well, that would be a question through the GM or back through to Jess. So if you want to put something in an email, you can look at it. We've talked about that shed. It is in a low point there, where it does flood and the rubbish does accumulate on the water a fair bit. It's all to clean up.
It does. Well, we thought a little bit of love there just might discourage some of the antisocial dumping.
I'm surprised it's still there.
Me too. And it's so full of rubbish, I'm just thinking someone's going to set fire to it and kill the piano. And so I just,
I was suggesting an email
Make
to
a
the general
feature of
manager, just
piano.
so we can look at that.
We could get the piano tuned and have installations. It doesn't matter if it floods, you know, if it hits the ball.
But if you're doing it on behalf of the community, you could apply, get a council grant to get it tied up for yourself as well, because it's, with WA Cares and volunteers, it's a little tricky, but there are some options around getting it set up so it's at least available.
Okay, thank you.
Surprised it's remained there for so long. Thank you everybody for your attendance. We have a few more things we have to do here, so appreciate you coming along.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
That's a little black book.
Nah, good.
I just got a big one.
Nah, I won't ask what's in the little black
Yep, got that.
Mine's first.
Yeah, we haven't got a cleaning program that's once a month, not all the hours. Yeah. Cool.
Get no, like, you can start 6 o'clock in the morning.
I'll check that.
I read that.
And just check on some of these people, just,
Hello, Jeff.
it's like that day, I called you up. Fair enough.